What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be checking out a video from OBF, why Europe is insanely well designed. I'm honestly not sure what they mean by well designed.
I had never heard that said before, so.
Are they talking about the roads? Are they talking about the towns themselves?
The architecture.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, I don't know what to expect here, so let's just go ahead and dive in and check out why Europe is insanely well designed.
This is a map of Europe's mass transit railway system across 33
Oh, it's railway.
Yellow lines indicate the presence of a train line.
Ooh.
And as you can see, it's very dense. There are hardly any spaces where there isn't any coverage.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, now I understand. This is about the transit.
The meridians of the trains.
Guys,
That's cool.
that is incredibly well designed.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now I kind of understand how people talk about going from the UK to going to Germany and to Norway and to all these other places by train.
You know we know about the Channel Tunnel, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we've seen videos about it, which is from London to France.
Mm-hmm.
But look at the map. There's also, it looks like a tunnel from London to Belgium.
Yeah, guys, what
There's
is
another
this?
tunnel that goes.
Yeah, that has to be underwater. I've never heard about that one.
Me either.
I wonder what that is.
For railways. Now, if we compare this to a map of railroad tracks in the US, it's a different story.
Yeah, ours are.
All right.
For sure.
All right, I think this is good to stop on for a second to show what we mean by we don't have much experience with trains. Because as you see, the U.S. is massive. I mean, the landmass is huge.
Yeah.
And so just imagine what we just saw compared to this in terms of railway travel.
There's so much unserved.
I mean, like I was raised over here in North Carolina. You see, there is a couple lines down here, but if you're over here somewhere, you have no access.
From.
And where you're
Where
from,
we live currently.
we're up here, right around, I don't know, somewhere around here, I
No,
guess. I
we're
can't tell.
up here.
Oh wait, that's Kentucky. Yeah, we're right. Anyway, it doesn't matter. As you can see, we even looked into this a while back. We have to drive like 2.5 hours just to get to a rail station.
And it's very convoluted even if you
Yeah,
do it.
like when you go and you try to take the train around here, you have to literally. You can't just like, I'm going to get on a train
There's no direct.
and I'm going to go to some random state. No, I have to like get a train, get off some random place, get another train.
If it's even possible.
Yeah, we've looked into that and it was such a headache. We never did it.
Gave up.
Yeah, we gave up because it's impossible. Even to get from here to where I was from originally, it's almost impossible to actually get a train
I feel
there.
like it was super expensive.
Yes, very much so.
While parts of the US have some good mass transit, there are large areas of the country which isn't covered by Amtrak, the nation's largest passenger railroad service. But let me show you another map, this time of high-speed rail in Europe. Now obviously, high-speed railways aren't going to be as common as regular speed railways,
But
as they
still.
require excellent design, strict planning, and massive investment. And yet, as we can see, high-speed rail is present in Europe, which is a stark contrast to the US, as you can see from this map. While the US does have some higher speed rail, like the Aquila line in the Northeastern Corridor, it's hardly an effective map of transport solutions. And the Aquila line isn't really that fast either. It can reach about 150 miles per hour, but averages less than 70. This is not the case for Europe's insanely well-designed railroad system.
That's like, remember we learned the Amtrak. I've taken the Amtrak from North Carolina to Florida a number of times when I was younger. And to me, I felt like it was going pretty fast, but it turns out their average speed is like 40 miles per hour or something? It's insane.
Maybe a little more at some point.
If it was high speed, we could get from North Carolina to Florida so quickly, but I think it generally takes around 12 hours or so.
Oh my gosh.
You have to remember that Europe's system accomplishes this while spanning 33 different nations in a very diverse continent.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
You're probably thinking, this is just because Europe is smaller than the United States, which simply isn't true. While the European Union is smaller than the US, continental Europe has an area that is about 1.04 times as much as the US. So we can dismiss this argument that the United States can't be that well designed because it's too big. Europe simply is better designed. But if you're American, you might not understand why railroad tracks or public transport as a whole is so important. I mean, driving a car works fine, right? Well, no. And Europe showcases why a primary focus on private transportation is so detrimental to a well-functioning transit system. Look at these maps. They show the US road network versus the EU's. And as you can see, the EU's road network is not nearly as impressive as the US's.
Oh,
That's crazy.
That is crazy. That's amazing. You know, I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that we are 50 unique states. I think a lot of people misinterpret the way laws around transportation and whatnot are set in the U.S. Generally speaking, most things are handled on a state-by-state basis. But then again, in Europe, there are individual countries. Yeah. But if you're part of the European Union, I guess that would be about the same as being part of the United States in a way.
Kind of.
We're both, you got states that are kind of like, our states all have their own constitutions, they have their own military, they have their own president, which is our governors of each state. So it's sort of like individual countries within each state.
That's interesting.
And yet, when you look at some of the most congested cities in the world, European countries don't feature particularly prominently in the global rankings. This is pretty shocking information because you'd assume that the country with a more expansive road network has a lot less congestion, especially considering the United States has devoted lots of time and money to their highways. So how come Europe is less congested when they have fewer roads? Well, it all comes down to disincentivizing the use of cars and, most importantly, making an attractive alternative. Europe does this by having both private and public transportation infrastructure, which technically the US has as well, it's just a lot worse. But on top
No, we don't have it around where we're at.
True. Only parts of the US.
I've literally never lived anywhere there was public transportation.
In the US.
Yeah, in the US.
of this, Europe makes it pretty expensive to buy, own, and use a car. This is achieved by having high taxes on vehicles and gasoline. In fact, here's a map of worldwide gasoline prices.
Woo!
As you can see, European nations are in the top rankings, while the US lies at the bottom, charging very little. But let me be very clear, it's only a good idea to make it expensive to drive a car if you have an attractive alternative. Which America doesn't, but Europe does. I mean, obviously this wouldn't work in the US with its current transportation infrastructure. But in Europe, this is a great strategy, because you make the roads less congested for those who actually need them, and give everyone else an affordable and efficient alternative, being Europe's amazing public transport like the trains on the railways. This is arguably the better strategy, because even though the vast majority of Americans have access to vehicles, at around 91%, and gas is comparatively cheap, it still leaves 9% who don't have access to vehicles. What are these people who can't afford a car supposed to do? I mean, sometimes public transport isn't even an option, or simply too expensive for many. So you've now actively excluded those who aren't exactly the most well off from society. To make matters worse, some US cities actually got rid of their public transport to make room for more cars. I'm not joking. American streetcars like trams were actually removed to make way for bigger roads. Absolutely insane. Compare that to Oslo, Berlin, and Madrid, where discussions are underway to restrict or even exclude most cars from the city center. And let's not forget that when you have cars, you also need somewhere to park them. And this is where things start to become rather ridiculous. You see, the United States has 2 billion parking spaces for 250 million cars. That's 8 parking spaces per vehicle. In Europe, it's pretty much a 1-to-1 with around 250 million public parking spaces for 300 million cars. To emphasize the ridiculousness of this even further, the area that the US dedicates for car parking is actually larger than the area dedicated for housing people. It's honestly unbelievable that people are being squeezed out of American cities due to regulators wanting to make more room for parking spaces. This simply wouldn't fly in the EU, as it has a whole policy dedicated to improving urban planning. See, the EU spends...
Look at that!
That's beautiful. I love the grid, like the way it's set up.
Yeah, I love this greenway here. That's cool.
That is.
I mean, it's a road. Look at it.
Is that London?
No, I don't know what that is.
That building back there looks like the Gherkin, but yeah, you're right. It's not.
Yeah, I have no idea where this is, but you see, this is a road with trees.
I love it.
15 billion euros between 2014 and 2020 to improve city design by making it smarter, greener, and more connected. Simply meaning they allocated funds to make their cities more efficient, more connected, and better for the environment.
Look at that.
And better for the environment they really are. as the average resident in a typical Western US city, such as Los Angeles or Phoenix, contributes approximately 6 times more carbon to the atmosphere per capita than an average European city resident. This is purely the result of not having effective transport solutions, which saves resources and allows people to move about efficiently. And exactly that, moving about efficiently is something most of Europe's citizens are able to do as a result of the European Union. See, most of Europe's nations are in the European Union, which gives the EU citizens a number of perks, which includes a free travel area. This has been one of the most important achievements of the EU, as it makes it possible for an EU citizen to travel freely to other EU member states and stay for up to 3 months.
Oh, wow.
All they need is a passport or even just an ID card. No visas, no trips to embassies, no form filing, just head straight over. This makes it incredibly easy to travel, study, and work in other countries and communities, and having this level of centralization is very important to good design, as it gives the smartest people the opportunity to work where they are most useful. And since good design obviously requires a lot of complicated problem solving and planning, this is very smart. Another smart thing is the incredible biking infrastructure we see in Europe, perfectly illustrated by this map of bike
Great if you live in a town or a city.
All the purple lines are bike paths, and there's clearly a lot of them, especially towards the left side of the map. But that's just because this.
I love that because that's something I dislike about a lot of towns in America. It feels very unsafe to ride a bike in your town. Usually, because there's no bike lane, generally speaking, and people don't pay attention, and so it's just unsafe. And I wish it was more accessible in that sense.
That's wild. So all the purple are bike paths.
Yeah, that's
wow.
It's the home of the Dutch, the Netherlands. Now, the funny thing is, I won't be able to compare this to a map of bike path density in the United States, because such a map hasn't been made. At least I wasn't able to find any, and I can only wonder why. But anyway, what Europe and also the European Union has achieved is pretty remarkable, as it's hard to think of another set of such diverse countries where you would be able to travel so freely, in an efficient and inexpensive manner. I mean, you can literally get from Paris to Amsterdam, for example, in just 3 hours for around $30.
What?
That is insane!
To travel all over Asia without any border crossings, checks, or visas.
Dude, we can't even get to, like, upper Indiana in 3 hours. That's insane.
Being able to stay for months at a time. That would be truly amazing. And let's not forget that European design has always been distinctive and very successful. In fact, the continent's history of design and interconnectedness serves as a model for the rest of the world.
First, I want to say, beautiful scenery, beautiful buildings, beautiful architecture. I'm a sucker for architecture. I saw a lot of beautiful cities in this video. But one thing that sticks out to me, and I kind of know that already, is that like so many, like we've looked at in the UK, so many of the cities are very, very old. At the time, they were using, horse and buggy and walking a lot and whatnot within town. And so a lot of the roads are smaller.
Yeah.
And as you look through here, I can already see that things are much more compact. Housing is much, closer together and whatnot. And so the U.S. being newer in many, many cases, a lot of cities came about during the time we were getting the Industrial Revolution going and during the time cars were already on the roads. And the cities may have already been there, but a lot of the larger infrastructure was built after that. And so I think that also is a big reason why we may have more cars here in Europe, because generally speaking, we were able to build larger roads already into the infrastructure itself, compared to if you were going to do that in a lot of European cities, you'd have to tear down the infrastructure, which obviously you're not. So it absolutely makes more sense right off the bat to invest in public transportation instead of trying to figure out how you're going to put larger roads through all these communities.
You have to destroy things.
Like one thing I've noticed in, Europe in general, anywhere really, you see these wonderful walking paths throughout the cities. Like you can just walk everywhere.
Yeah,
that
very
isn't
accessible.
That isn't generally the case here in the U.S.
There's some cities that have been created more or like updated into more accessible spaces, but for the most part, as a whole, I don't feel like we have that here, which sucks because I really like that.
Yeah, I like that too. I also think that like, because the U.S. is so big compared to not necessarily Europe as a whole, but individual countries, we have this massive amount of space between urban areas. We have massive amounts of rural areas, which would probably be hard to serve consistently with public transportation. You know, and I think luckily most people without cars here in the U.S. generally live in areas like New York City, LA, where they have infrastructure to get public transportation. Us, on the other hand, we have no access to it. We could get an Uber, I guess. But man, that would get expensive after a while.
Maybe. There's probably not many options.
Probably not many.
And they probably wouldn't take you very far.
You want me to tell you how you know we have very little public transportation here? Because even when it comes to a taxi, there is one taxi that's a van that some guy himself started up.
Yeah, it was like taxi guy or something.
Yeah, and he has taxi road on the side of his van.
Yeah, and that's your option. And if he's not working, you're out of luck.
Yeah. And I mean, like, we live in a smaller community, but not, I mean, we're like 15,000 people here in this town. So it's like not like tiny. But nonetheless, even a place like this, we just do not have access to public transportation. And I look forward to riding on some public transportation someday. You know, I've done very little of it.
I will say one downside of the public transportation and de-incentivizing the use of cars, for me personally, it might not be an issue for other people, but for me personally, I don't feel as safe traveling on public transit as I do in my own vehicle, obviously, because you have to be around a bunch of other people.
You're not talking about accidents or wrecks.
No.
You're talking about
other people involved, like.
I mean, I guess that's true, but I mean, statistically, I'm sure you're mostly safe on public transportation in Europe. But you know, that is true. That is something you'd have to be aware of, I suppose. But nonetheless, something I look forward to doing. I've only rode the Amtrak, like I said, a handful of times. I've rode the Greyhound bus, which is kind of like.
You rode a Greyhound? I've never done that.
Yes.
I've never rode an Amtrak.
I rode a Greyhound from. I think I did it from North Carolina to Florida once, and then I rode it to somewhere up north before.
Those are notoriously slow.
They're horrible.
And gross.
Like, we're talking about literally to go from North Carolina to Florida, it took like over 24 hours.
Oh my God.
They are so slow. But like, I'll just say this, like, it seems like the public transportation you guys have Europe-wide, doesn't really matter the country. Seems like it's pretty amazing how you can get to other countries extremely quickly.
I know.
It's one of those things I'm definitely jealous of. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing, and I mean, obviously, where we're at, we have Canada way up there, and we have Mexico way down there, so we couldn't really. Even with good transportation, we couldn't get to another country that quickly.
No.
But nonetheless, it would be nice to be able to have some sort of infrastructure.
State thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But guys, let us know in the comments, what do you think of the public transportation throughout Europe? Have you guys spent a lot of time on it, or do you prefer to drive your own vehicles? It definitely seems like driving your own vehicles in a lot of Europe can be a headache in terms of finding a parking space and whatnot. But there's also a lot less cars on the road comparatively, so maybe it's not that big a deal. But I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments or suggestions about this video or others. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow us on our journey. Until next time, peace.
Bye.